Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning on in to another live stream here. This is Lenon. I'm LenonHonor, but this is a series of videos. This is episode number 4, and the series is titled "The Journey," my journey through the conspiracy theory paradigm. We got a lot to get into tonight. This is episode number 4. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Also, thank you for those who have been patient. I don't want to give excuses, but I had some things I needed to take care of. And we have so much to get through today. I'm wondering if I should even be doing this one. Yeah, I don't know how deeply we want to go on this one. I'm not quite sure. We do have some usual suspects in the building. Renee's here. Thank you so much for being here. Boston Man is here as well. Sophia Pudding is here. Thank you so much for tuning on in. Brianna's here as well. Thank you so much. The Tatted E Spirit is here as well. Thank you. Okay. Excuse me. So this series has been interesting. And I was surprised. I was surprised that people were interested in it. And there has been quite a number of views. I didn't think we'd be getting that many views, but the views are going up. And they're longer videos, and people have been, the watch time is really, really good. So I'm going to stick with it. There's so much I want to get to. And if you haven't seen the other episodes, I would encourage you to check those out because they give you more of a background information. I was a conspiracy theorist. I was deep into conspiracy theories. Not only did I study and read and research, I also produced videos that people might classify as conspiracy theories. I noticed in the chat room people were talking about even the term conspiracy theory. I think it was in episode 1. We broke down the terminology itself. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with conspiracy theories. There's nothing wrong with a conspiracy. There's nothing wrong with a theory. The difference is we have to take it from conspiracy theory to conspiracy fact based on evidence that conclusively proves the theory. And that's the big thing here. There are conspiracy theories that I have been able to prove are true, and therefore they become conspiracy facts. I've also know conspiracy theories that they didn't prove to be true. So I just leave them in the realm of conspiracy theory. Should we look into them? Absolutely. Should we consider them? Yes. And I would like to start by just going over the main points from episode 1, 2, and 3. This is episode number 4. Episode 1 is there's nothing wrong with questioning reality and researching conspiracy theories. However, we must be careful not to lose ourselves in the process. And I lost myself in the process deeply. And I've talked about them in previous episodes. I won't rehash that here. Make sure you check out episode 1 through 3. Episode 2, blind belief is dangerous. We can be led to accept things that are not true while attempting to prove things that are not true. And I'm guilty of that too. There's something called confirmation bias. We've talked about that as well. And in episode 3, the main theme was when we attempt to prove something to be true without any conclusive proof, we inevitably resort to speculation, hearsay, and connecting dots that have no relationship to each other. Now, I'm guilty of doing that as well. Okay, so we have this is just to be careful as we go deeper into what we used to call the rabbit hole. And here in episode 4, I believe that there is life beyond our planet. However, to date, it has not been proven to be true. What happens when we want to believe it to be true? How far do we go to prove it true without conclusive proof? And that's where I'm wondering if I should even be talking about this topic, because we've been getting into different conspiracy theories. In fact, I have I think it's a top 5 that I got into really, really deep. But as we've gone through it, we've kind of brushed over, I shouldn't say brushed over, but we've considered different types of conspiracies. And some deals with world government, the New World Order, the Illuminati, the global elite, the global bankers, etc., martial law. But then there's this, I guess we can say that the transition that is often made from those types of theories, whether they're facts or not, right? But those types of theories to when it starts to get more into like UFOs and aliens and the Chitahuri, right? The reptilian shapeshifters, the Palladians. So it's a bit of a divergence from what kind of the base level world government type of stuff, but it still has relevance within the whole conspiracy theory paradigm. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we've kind of been getting more into that as we got into David Icke reptilian shapeshifters. We got into Credo Mutwa. I'm thinking about, really want to play some more of that Credo Mutwa, because there's this one part in that video series and where it really influenced me mentally. And I don't even know if I want to get into this at some point. If I have the courage, I'm going to do it tonight. Today, if I don't have the courage, I'll wait the next live stream. Okay. But it's important to understand these different areas of research that we can get into. And sometimes we go too far, and sometimes we get consumed by them. And in my case, I went too far and I got consumed by them, and it was to my detriment and to my family's detriment to a degree. That's why I think it's just important to have balance. That's the most important thing. There's nothing wrong with looking into conspiracy theories. Okay, so this is episode number 4. Again, thank you all so much for tuning on in. There was a question that was asked, and every single episode, I want to make sure that I address the question that was asked, at least one that was asked inside the comment section from the previous episode. And this question was, Lenon, can you ask what caused you to give up on the concept of hollow earth? I'm currently in a stage where all my research is pointing to the concept having a lot of meat and validity to it. Curious if there was something specific that made you see it as pointless or not worth considering. Well, the thing is that I did consider it. I would say that most conspiracy theories that I've ever looked into, that I at least considered it. Yeah, including the hollow earth. I even gave a story about when I was on this forum, and someone posted a link to this. I think it was a website. Yeah, it was a website, and on that website there was a story, and it talked about how this guy went into the earth, and he was traveling. He kept going deeper and deeper, and it wasn't just there's caves and stuff. Now that's one thing. It could just be caves. Does that mean that the whole earth is hollow? Not necessarily. But anyway, I gave this story and how he goes deeper and deeper into the earth, and then he finds these, I don't know, 16 feet tall beings down there, and they have a light source, and they're walking around. And that whole story it freaked me out bad. It messed me up real bad. It was real late at night. The room was all dark. I'm sitting on my, and the story was written so very well that it was believable. But the point I want to get to is, in terms of the hollow earth, well, there's two things. Number one, to me, it really doesn't matter as much. Outside of the idea that, we're being lied to, if it was true, we would be lied to. Okay, that's not all that great. I think that's one of the motivating factors for those of us who have gotten into conspiracy is that we don't want to be lied to. We want to know the truth. The truth is out there. Remember X-Files? We're going to get a little bit to that into that today, because that's something that I totally forgot to talk about. But the point is that with in the pursuit of these truths, sometimes things may mean more to us because we feel like we're being lied to. So we want to know the truth. And if the earth is not, comprised of magma, a core, magma core, whatever they call it, I would like to know that just on general principle. But on the other hand, at this point in my life, it really doesn't matter to me all that much. Okay. It's not going to really make that big of a difference in terms of where I'm at this stage in my life. But if it was true that, let's say that the earth was hollow, I would like to know that. Okay. Now, do I believe that it's hollow? I don't think so. Because in general, things of greater density tends to compact, especially when you have a gravitational force. The things of greater density are pulled towards the middle, where the things of lighter density are more on the external. Okay. And whether you look at the earth, or if you put, well, anyway. Okay. So that's why I don't think that it's hollow. But are there caves, and there are massive cave structures? Yes, I'm sure there are. Okay. So I wanted to address that question, but there was something else. I also wanted to address a comment each time before we get into the show. And this was from a viewer. He says, it sounds like some people got you because I'll say PDs. The PDs are real. Sex trafficking is real. Don't lie to your people, brother. And the thing is that I was talking about how it's one thing to know that truth, but it's another thing when you're trying to prove it and you're connecting dots that should not be connected. That's really what I was talking about. So am I denying that, that sex trafficking exists? No, not at all. Am I denying that there are pedo rings? Not at all. And here is my reply in written form. I said, yes, they are real. Jeffrey Epstein is a modern day example of it. But I was so fearful of these things that I became extremely paranoid of them and thought everything was a threat. And in particular, everything was a PD threat. Okay. So if I'm watching a television show, I'm looking for PD threats. And, oh, that's a PD threat, to my children. At a certain point, we wouldn't even let our children watch TV, because that's overboard. If I'm watching a movie, oh, that's a PD threat. Okay. And there's a certain point we wouldn't let our children watch certain movies, right? It wasn't even with media. It began to, same thing with music videos. Same thing with halftime shows, like the Super Bowl halftime shows, that type of thing, and the award shows, the music award show. Okay, there's a PD threat. They're promoting, PD. Okay, that's a different way of perceiving things that reaches beyond what's reasonable, in my opinion. Now, am I saying that there aren't PD rings? No, that's not what I'm saying. Am I saying that same thing with, there was a time too where everything was about, this is a satanic ritual and they're performing it on stage, or they're doing it at the halftime show, and Hollywood is promoting. Yeah, that is true that those things do happen. But when you see it everywhere, then you have to start questioning your mentals. Okay. And that's what one of the main important points that I want to make in this series is that, yes, these things exist, but when you start to perceive them in virtually everything, and then you get so fearful of them because it's coming from a place of fear, that's when you have to take a step back, because then you start making decisions based upon irrationality and things that aren't really there, but you perceive them to be real. Same thing with reptilian shapeshifters. Okay. No proof. I've never been able to prove it. And trust me, I've done everything to try to prove it to, and I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have had to have tried to prove it. That should have been proven from the jump. It never was proven, in my opinion. But I've went through all of this effort, trying to prove it to be true. And then I'm starting to see reality in a particular way. Okay, I become delusional. And I start to think in terms of, okay, they are real. And if they were real, then they would use that palm tree to scratch its back. Okay, that's what I mean. Nothing wrong with questioning reality. Nothing wrong with considering different things. I get it. But when you get to a point where your mentals, you're trying, it's called, and I said it earlier, it's called confirmation bias. When that's the whole approach to this and seeking truth, you're trying to confirm something, a theory either that you have or that someone else has, and you're trying to prove it, and you're looking for any little thing in order to prove it. That has little to do with truth. See, so that's what I want people to be careful about. If you're going down this rabbit hole, don't get to the point where now everything is a satanic hand sign. Someone's waving at you like, did you see that satanic hand sign? No, right? Everything is a satanic ritual, right? Everything is the pedophilic threat, a PD threat. No, it's just over. It's really over the top, and I've been there myself. Okay. So let's get to. Let me bring this up right here. Oh, I want to share this because at some point we'll get into this too. Okay, we'll get into this, and we won't get into the what's in the book, but I think it's important to understand that these two books right here. One was the transformation, or excuse me, Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor, and the other one was Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien. If you have read these, you know what I'm talking about here. These two books were two of the most disturbing books that I've read, and I wish I didn't read them because it impacted me in so many different ways. Talking about pedo threats, talking about sex trafficking, talking about Illuminati mind control and Manchurian candidate type of thing, and then the entertainment industry, the Illuminati, all this stuff. These two books in particular had a profound impact on me, and I wish I had not had not read these when I read these. And these really put me, it really created a level of imbalance in me mentally and emotionally because of the graphic nature of some of the stuff that they talk about here. So the reason I'm bringing these up is going back to what the person had said before. No, it's not that that I deny these things. I recognize that they do exist. In fact, I used to get into that information where, it put me in a state of perpetual fear. And it wasn't just in terms of television shows and movies and music videos. It actually translated to my everyday life, where I started to see people who were just regular people, and I saw them as a PD threat. You see what I'm saying? That's over. That's over the top. Okay. Now, are there people who are threats? Yes, but when you see everyone as, okay, that's when you really got to step back and really reassess things. In fact, my first documentary was What Lies in Plain Sight, which was based on Dr. Wilson Bryan Keyes' work. And one of his conspiracy theories. Then I did this video that was called something like "The Creator, the Gods, the Evil, and the Manipulation of Humanity," which really was setting the stage for my second documentary, which was "What Lies in Plain Sight," okay, which dealt with Rihanna's umbrella video and the idea of possession and blah. It just goes on and on and on. But after that, there were two videos dealing with Disney that really comes from a point of view of someone who had gotten to the point in their mental state where they saw PD threats everywhere. That's dangerous. It's no different than Illuminati rituals, seeing that in everything. Or here's another example, Illuminati symbolism. How many of you guys remember that one hit the one? So it'd be a pyramid, or it'd be an all-seeing eye, or I mean, there were so many things. And then I would watch things and I would just look for what I would think was a Illuminati symbol, even if it really wasn't an Illuminati symbol, but it's coming from a place of fear, you see? So what I'm getting at is that when you get into this conspiracy theory paradigm, and if you're digging deep and you're going into the rabbit hole, if your perception is based upon fear of something, that's when you should take a step back and really reassess things. And I gone so deep and got so consumed. I even talked about, I got extremely paranoid. My anxiety was off the charts, paranoia, and then delusion. You start to see things and you start to believe in things. And I don't even know if I want to get into this tonight. We're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm trying to tell y'all. And I just started thinking about it like over yesterday, because I was doing some research into one of the people I want to get into tonight. Okay. All right. Someone said, let me just real quick. Anybody have any questions? Then we're going to get into it for today. Glenn said, did you ever get into Glenn Keeley? No, I don't remember Glenn Keeley. Okay. What's up, Black Anonymous? Thank you for tuning on in. Yeah, no, and it's not triangles. It's not triangles. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the Illuminati pyramid. It's like everywhere now. And any pyramid I see, that has to be an Illuminati. They're in control of this. I'm watching Star Trek and it's like, oh, there's a pyramid, right? Oh, there must be Illuminati. You see what I'm saying? All right. Yeah, that's another one, the one I covered. I used to be, yeah, that's me too. All right. That O'Brien book had me open. She still talks now. Oh, really? Yeah, but they put me in extreme fear, though, both of those books. There was another one. I can't remember who the lady was, too. She didn't write a book, but David Icke interviewed her, and that shook me up, too, because she was talking about reptilian shapeshifters. But those two books are two books that I wish I had not read, because it really twisted me up to the point where I was scared. I was so scared. Okay. There is a spoof of it where people are seeing pyramids and okay, how's it going, Bridget? I remember Vigilant Citizen reported a lot of these theories. I haven't visited his site in a long time, but I believe it's still okay. Yeah, I think he and I interviewed him a couple of times. I think he interviewed me. There's a lot of people that I actually interviewed back in the day, or they interviewed me. Yeah, the Delta hand sign. It goes on. How's it going, Amira? How's it going, guys? Little princess. Okay. Okay. All right. I was just looking for some any questions before we get into this. Someone said I was so hyper vigilant about secret society hand signs that I disciplined my nephew from throwing up the Spider-Man sign when he was a kid over the top. Yeah, but I used to perceive the Spider-Man sign as an Illuminati satanic hand sign. And then whenever I would see it, it's like confirmation bias. You see what I'm saying? That's a very dangerous place to be, because it's like really speaks to delusion. Not everything is a satanic hand sign. Okay, not everything is a satanic ritual. Not everything is Illuminati. You see what I'm saying? All right. Okay, let's get into it, because I got a lot that I want to get to tonight. Hey, Leonard, are you still into philosophy and spirituality? Well, see that, and we'll get into this in this series, because what ended up happening was, because I was in such an extreme level of fear when I was doing the conspiracy theory paradigm, and it affected me, especially mentally. I mean, I was out there. When I say I was out there, it's just, I was so far gone because of I mean, it was years. I mean, I thought I started in 2006, but I actually think I started in 2004, 2005, when I first started to get into David Icke. Okay. At the earliest, it was 2004. At the latest, it was 2005. So it was what, almost 4 years of really going in before I started to actually produce videos, what I would people consider to be conspiracy theory videos. But what ends up happening is over many years, the weight of it all, and then the decisions that I've made because of it, and then my mental state, and just being overwhelmed with fear. I used to call it a culture of perpetual fear. That's when I began to transition into spirituality and metaphysics, because it was like, okay, spirituality and metaphysics really, it's like about transcendence. It's about moving beyond this physical domain and getting into these other dimensions of existence, right? And in these other dimensions of existence, we transcend the Illuminati, we transcend the world bankers, we transcend the global elite and the blah, 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 right? But really what that was another form of escapism, because that becomes another paradigm that I got caught up in and just got consumed by, and making bad decisions in terms of my family life, and focusing on the wrong things. And then for not as many years, but for a number of years, that was what I focused on. Okay. It was a mistake. Okay, but this again is a journey. I would also say this, that it's not uncommon for people to go from, you know, the fear that's associated and anxiety and the all of that that's hypervigilance that's associated with the conspiracy theory paradigm, and then start to transition into the spirituality and metaphysics, because it's a lot easier. You know, it's not as cumbersome on one's emotional state and mental state, but it can also become another rabbit hole that we get caught up in, and then it becomes a distraction from everyday life. Okay, and I went down that path too. All right. Did you ever watch Unsolved Mysteries? I sure did. There was a strong conspiracy element on that show as well. Show disturbed me as a kid, but I still watched it. Yeah, I watched it too. And that's part of it too, Robbie, is we watch and it disturbs us, but we keep watching. You know, it's like Alex Jones. I watched and he disturbed me. It's the Bohemian Grove and the cremation of care and the satanic rituals and the sacrifice of the children. You know how he would talk? I mean, it's scary stuff, but then I just could not turn away, you know, and at a certain point I did, but it's unfortunate that I stayed as long as I did, right? And watched it, but it's very hard not to watch it. You're right about that. All right. How's it going, Mixers, Monica? Hope you're doing all right. All right. We got so much to get to. Rick, there's something in the one-eyed symbol, and why so many entertainers doing it with the sixth symbol. Yeah, I know. I've been through all of that. I mean, in my documentary work, I showed examples of that over and over again. Did you get into sexual symbolism and logos and cards? Yeah, I got into the satanic symbolism, the Illuminati symbolism, the sexual symbolism, and I also talked about some of that came out of Dr. Wilson Brian Keys, but some of that also came out of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. I talked about that in the previous episode. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, I would like to get into more of this. At some point, I'll be sure to ask if you guys have any specific questions, and we'll get into that. My entry into this bizarre world was with David Icke as well. He used to be a man cow on the Man Cow Morning Show every now and then, talking about the lizard. Yeah. I don't think he really talks about it as much now, but that was his main talking point that really, you know, kind of propelled him into prominence around the world. Yeah, I know. I remember Bill Cooper. Yeah, real quick before we get into this, because I was trying to think about this. There was a show that I used to watch. It was called something like The Forum, and I remember they had these guys, and there was one guy. I can't remember if he was a Christian, like a Jesuit priest, or if he was from a synagogue or something. But he was talking about all of this satanic stuff and how they use, and then he was talking about possession and all this stuff. Does anybody know what that was? I thought it was called The Forum or something like that. But if there's anyone who knows, if you can type inside of the chat room, or if you're watching this at a later time, if you know what I'm talking about, please, because that's something else I want to incorporate, because I used to watch that a lot too. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get back to here. I want to, I already mentioned this. So this is episode number 4. Okay, and we've been talking about my top 5 conspiracy theorists: Alex Jones, David Icke, Brian Keys, Jordan Maxwell. And then today, if we have time, this is really what I want to focus on today, but I have a sense that we're not going to have enough time. But Alex Collier was someone that I got deep into, and it really influenced my perception of reality. And I don't even know if I want to get into that today. Like I keep saying I'm going to be able to do it, but I don't know. All right. Now, before we get into this, I do want to mention something. And this is something that someone brought up earlier. What's up, Donald? Someone brought up in an earlier episode, and I completely forgot about it. And that was the X-Files, which premiered in 1993. It went through 2018. I believe it's the longest standing sci-fi series of all time. And in 1993, I didn't really get into it in 1993. I think it was probably about 1997, maybe 98, where I really started to watch. But what I forgot about was this really was my introduction into conspiracy theories. And if you guys really think about it, a lot of what David Icke talked about, well, not a lot, but there are things that David Icke talked about. There are things that Jordan Maxwell talked about. There are things that, what's the guy's name? Collier, he talked about, and others, Alex Jones, that if you go back and you watch X-Files, they were talking about these things a long time ago. Anyone to follow me on this, hit the one, because I've totally forgot about the X-Files. And I remember watching it, and it was very compelling, and I got deep into it. And there's a story that I want to tell. Maybe I should tell you all this right now. So maybe I should. Well, I don't want to. But so part of the whole X-Files thing was, it was about seeking truth. What's up, Donald and Giovanna? Vanna? Okay, so y'all watched it. Okay, and this is important because I totally forgot about this and the influence that it played on me way before I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm later on in life. But this was an aspect of the conspiracy theory paradigm. I just didn't think about it until someone mentioned it. Oh, Doctor Who is okay. Doctor Who is the longest, 60 years. Okay. Okay, I didn't know that it came back. That's probably why. Yeah, my bad. Thank you for clarifying that, Jimmy Jammery. So let's go back, okay? Because if anytime I mess up, I got to make sure we. So it says 1993 to 2018, but what you're saying is that it actually ended and then it came back at a certain point, and that's why it's 2018. Okay, thank you for the clarification. All right, and I appreciate it. So I wanted to bring up the X-Files because this really was the early introduction. See, I thought it was David Icke in and around 2005. It may have been 2004. I thought it was 2006, but it's actually before that. It was either 2005 or 2004. But really, it was the X-Files. And they talked a lot about seeking the truths and extraterrestrials and alien abduction and secret government operations and mind control and genetic modification, amongst many, many other topics. But this show really did impact me, and I didn't really think about it until I started watching some of the videos that we were going to get into today. And maybe I should go ahead and tell this. So this is tough. This is a tough one. Y'all gonna have to. I'm gonna need some support on this one. So I watched X-Files, but I was into sci-fi. Okay, and this is pre me really getting deep into conspiracy theories. That's why it's really interesting. And I didn't think about it until I was watching this Credo Mutwa video. We're gonna get into it today. And I was watching Alex Collier and some other things. I also was watching Dr. Delbert Blair. And I think I had to have been 22 years old. I may have been going on 23, but I believe I was 22. And the reason why is because when I was 23, I had a girlfriend who was 33. And that relationship was after this situation. And what the situation was, I've always been into sci-fi. I'm a Trekkie. You know, I've watched it all. Twilight Zone is another one. I don't know if we want to throw that in there as conspiracy. We could, some of those episodes, right? There was another one. It had a clock that would go around or something like that. I can't remember what it was called. The intro was real spooky. Anyway, but there's these different sci-fi or sci-fi type of shows. Yeah, I'm still into sci-fi. That's my thing. I'm a Trekkie. So during that time period, I remember there was two dreams that I had. Okay, please, you guys follow me on this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. There's two dreams that I had, and they really stuck with me. And I'm gonna bring this all back around later to prove a point how we can get caught up later on in life in the conspiracy theories, and then we start to see things in a different way, trying to prove something to be true. I had two dreams. One of the dreams was of seeing these massive UFOs, and it was the traditional flying saucer type of UFO, and just looking up and just being like, you know, in total amazement. Okay, and then that dream ends. All right, but there was another dream that I had, and in this dream, the same type of craft ends up pursuing me. I'm trying to get away, and whatever the alien is, they end up catching me. And not only do they catch me, they end up inserting some sort of a device. Doesn't it sound like X-Files? They insert some type of device, and I don't even know what the point of the device was per se, but that's what the dream was. And I was like, you know, and it was scary. You know, you wake up and you're scared, and, right? Okay, we're gonna come back to this later on just to show you how influential the conspiracy theory paradigm can be. All right, boy, I don't even know if we want to. Maybe I need to end this right now. We're gonna have to end this show. Thank you all for tuning in. You had a dream of all the planets. Okay, yeah, I'm sure we've all had all kind of all right. So I'm bringing this up because one of the main points of the X-Files it dealt with alien abduction. And does anyone remember how alien abduction plays into the X-Files? And I mean, some of you may not, because X-Files is older. Some of you guys are younger. Anyone know how because it's the central thing. Really, it is like the premise of the whole show. It's just, it kind of gets lost in all the different storylines and all this kind of stuff. But does anybody remember how alien abduction ties to the X-Files? Okay. And I'll wait. Yeah, people are people you want to keep no I'm gonna come back to it later. If I have enough strength, if I have enough strength and courage, I'll share with y'all what this is all about. And there it is right there. Thank you, Jimmy Jamboree. Mulder's sister was abducted, allegedly by aliens. So the whole story, really, when they say, I think, isn't it like the truth is out there or something like that? Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was part of it, like the truth is out there. So even though there's all these different stories and you know, there's all these different, okay, it's a UFO, it's, you know, a government plot, you know, there's that oil thing, the oil that would come around and then the people get black eyes and all this kind of stuff. That should scare me really bad. But really, what the premise of it all was Mulder's sister being abducted by aliens. See, and it gets lost in it. But that key point, we're going to get into this in just a moment. That key point is really what stuck with me the most about the X-Files. So even getting into conspiracy theories, that had already been there to where I had some dreams about UFOs and being abducted by aliens. But later on, if I have the courage, I'm going to share something with y'all. I don't know if Mulder, I don't know if he got abducted. He may have, but I know that the premise was that his sister had it, and part of him doing all of this searching, he was really searching to find his sister, okay, which was really intriguing. Okay. Yeah, Outer Limits, that was it, Glenn. Yeah, thank you. Outer Limits, I used to watch that all the time. Okay, that was kind of like there was Outer Limits and there was the Twilight Zone, those two. Okay, maybe he got abducted, but his sister definitely got abducted. Okay, if I may have gotten it wrong, but I know, yeah, I know. I said, oh man, that was a good one. That was a good one. And then when that guy put that helmet on, that fluid came in, and he was choking and stuff, and then boy, I was so scared. Okay, let me just look at it real quick. Yeah, it did. It had sci-fi. Yep. Okay, so let's get back to it. I want to make sure we progress here. So some of the main themes, I guess we can say, in X-Files was seeking truth, extraterrestrials, alien abduction, secret government operations, mind control, and genetic modification. And of course, actually, these types of things actually connect to some of the theories of these conspiracy theorists. My top 5: Alex Jones, David Icke, Brian Keyes, Jordan Maxwell, and hopefully today we'll get into Alex Collier. But we got to get into a specific video with Credo Mutwa. Okay, and I told people that we would get into it. Now, real quick, just as an overview, I know we've talked about this, but I just want to throw this out here again so that if you haven't seen previous episodes, I would encourage you to check out episode 1, 2, and 3. But Alex Jones, these are some of his major themes that he talked about: the Bohemian Grove martial law, the Sandy Hook school shooting, satanic rituals, blood sacrifice, the PD rings, the homosexual agenda, and that 911 was an inside job. Of course, David Icke, reptilian shapeshifters, the British royal family bloodline, Princess Diana ritual assassination, satanic rituals, blood sacrifice, the PD rings, and the 911 was an inside job. And then, of course, Wilson Brian Keyes, he had a major impact on me: subliminal messages, subliminal advertising, symbolism, mind control, the homosexual agenda, and of course, the Beat It song and video. And I did a documentary based on his theory of the Beat It song and video. Now, we talked about Jordan Maxwell in the last episode, and he talked a lot about Illuminati and Freemasons, occult symbolism, mind control, alien agenda, Anunnaki. Y'all seeing some patterns here? Alien agenda, Anunnaki. He talked about religion, the Bible, theology, astrotheology, zeitgeist. Jordan Maxwell is probably my favorite out of all of them. Sovereignty, birth certificates, admiralty law, common law, and natural law. However, listen, I understand, Treya. I understand. Now, Jordan Maxwell, he was probably my favorite, but I know that in the last episode, I brought up how when I really started to question, because he helped me to question reality, and some of the things that he talked about, especially about sovereignty, it impacted decisions that my wife and I, because we made in terms of birth certificates and social security numbers, and this idea of sovereignty, living off of the grid, as it were. That being said, even though he helped me to question reality, and we probably made some bad decisions as a consequence, there was also good decisions that we made. There was one thing that he was talking about, and I mentioned it, and I didn't have the actual audio of it, but I have the audio now, and I just want to play it because I don't want people to think that I was making it up. But what he says in the second half of this, it's a short clip of this audio. That's when I said, wait a minute, I need to kind of back up off of this. Okay. And this is going back many years. So if you guys don't mind, let me pull this up. Let me also say this, that the person who uploaded it, they also upload like kind of like in a joking way, this guy's response to what he's saying. And I want everyone to dismiss that. And you'll be able to tell because it's kind of louder and you don't hear Jordan Maxwell's voice. I want you to specifically listen to what Jordan Maxwell is saying in this particular clip. Okay. All right, here we go.
But I was being exposed at a very early age to the really totally dark side, a side of the occult world that most people don't even want to think about. I woke up one night, middle of the night, and I went totally ballistic. When I woke up, there was an entity in the room, and it was, I cannot tell you how evil the presence was to my spirit. Whatever it was that was in my room was so profoundly evil. So I started having, for a lack of a better term, otherworld experiences at a very early age, going out of my body. That was a whole off-the-wall experience too at 8.
Okay, so you see how someone overdubbed like this guy laughing. Just please dismiss that, because the truth is I've had similar types of experiences, and many of you may have too. You know, like this kind of like unexplained type of phenomenon that's taking place. I've had those experiences. I just didn't like how the person, the uploader, is kind of mocking Jordan Maxwell, whatever you guys may believe or whatever. That's really not the point. I want to get this particular section in this particular audio. Here we go.
9 years old.
No, go ahead.
One night when I was a small child, my dog woke up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I woke up, my dog was howling and barking, and of course waking up the neighborhood. And my dad yelled, go quiet that dog. And I knew that there was something bad because the dog was going out of its mind. And so I ran.
Yeah, let me just let it play without the, okay, if you guys can still hear the audio. If you can't, let me know. But I don't like that. Right? And I get it. Okay, but, you know.
Out to the back porch, and I'm telling you, the dog had cornered between my backyard fence and my dad's garage. It had cornered a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Oh, go on. It'll be okay.
Okay, so he's saying a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I think that's what he's saying. But let's listen a little bit further.
Little, small, about 2 foot high, or I would estimate about 2 foot high, full developed dinosaur.
Okay, he said 2 foot tall, fully developed dinosaur, but that wouldn't be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Fully developed Tyrannosaurus Rex would be massive. You understand what I'm saying? So that right there. But here's the thing, because I don't want people to just say, okay, because I've been there myself. Trust me. Okay, I've put forth a lot of conspiracy theories that was way out there. I've said things that were way out there. But keep this in mind. He says that this happened when he was a little boy. So it's possible. It's quite possible that his daddy told him, listen, go quiet the dog. And when he gets over there, you know, he sees the dog, and who knows, it could be a large lizard. It could be an iguana. I don't know where he was living. And then maybe he perceives that as a child as being a dinosaur. That's how I look at it as in terms of explaining it. In my mind, I have to kind of, I had to give Jordan Maxwell the benefit of the doubt, because again, I had studied his work, and I talked about this in previous episodes, how I bought all of his DVDs and I watched them over and over and over again. So when I heard this particular one, I was like, okay, well, maybe just as a child, he interpreted one way, and then and I've done that in my life too. As a child, there were things that took place, and I may have seen it in a certain type of way. And then later on in life, I reflect on it and I talk about it as if, you know, with the same perspective as a child. But then as you get wisdom, you may say, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I was just hallucinating, or maybe I was just tripping, you know, or maybe I was just tired, or maybe I was just dreaming. You know what I'm saying? Now, that being said, though, this next part is what I remember I heard it, and that's when I said, wait a minute. Okay, here we go.
Tell me what happens.
I actually, with my own eyes, saw 6 pterodactyls in Los Angeles back in I would say probably 1980, 81. and I saw this little black dot, and it was almost not perceptible, and then I watched it because it seemed to be coming my way. This thing was flat out moving.
When I heard that, I said, wait a minute. All the other information that I'd studied from this guy, and I just didn't dismiss it. I just said, wait a minute. And this is what I mean. There's nothing wrong with going down into the rabbit hole. You just have to be careful, because there should be a line of demarcation where we say, okay, wait a minute, that's too far. You guys understand what I'm saying? That's a very important point. And I also thought about this too. I said to myself, wait a minute. He said 6 of them. You mean to tell me if there's 6 pterodactyls or pterodactyls flying around in Los Angeles, that no one else is going to see these 6 pterodactyls or whatever they call it flying around, and not one person had a VHS camcorder and recorded it, or the news agency say, wait a minute, let's get out? No. Which brings to mind something. I think that at some point when people get into conspiracy theories, especially those of us who have produced content, and I have in the past, I think sometimes we get to a point where we have to kind of outdo what we said before. And what we said before may have been valid, or at least partially valid, but we have to keep up with the Joneses, as it were. Because I've heard even Alex Jones do that. When David Icke would talk about, 6-dimension beings and reptilians and all this type of stuff, then all of a sudden Alex Jones, he's like, yeah, there's 6. But you weren't talking all that stuff before. You was talking about martial law and HAARP and FEMA death camps. I don't mean to laugh. Stay in your lane, bro. No, I'm just playing. But you see the point. I think that sometimes people tend to go, they just want to take it to the next level, and they may even believe it, but it may just be so that they can continue to get levels of attention that they got in the past. And I'm guilty of doing that too. It could be psychosis. It could be delusion, but it could also just be a flat out lie, a story that's told and that, for whatever reason, they told it. Yeah, when I heard that one, okay, and I see what I did with when he talked about when he was a child. I'm saying I'll give him a little leeway, okay, because children we perceive things a little bit different, okay. But when you're a grown man and you was talking about you was in Los Angeles and you saw 6 pterodactyls flying, and one of them they was way over there, but I guess they came closer, or at least one of them. Okay, that's just too much. All right, let me stop. I remember the Phoenix Lights of the 90s. I remember that one. Yeah. I remember that. Listen, I remember that. That was a huge one. Yeah. Okay. Do I need to just real quick in the chat room? Okay. The dinosaurs may have been some form of alien. Yeah, well, they could have been here. I mean, before we could be alien life form, because that's what Alex Collier, not Alex, because someone says it. I can't remember. Anyway, they have a smaller dinosaurs that are built like T-Rex, just slightly. Okay. So maybe that's. Okay, yeah. Puts me in the mind of Santo Bonacci. I interviewed him. Love listening to him in his As Above, So Below presentations. Yeah, he was one of the positive sources during my journey to the conspiracy era. Yeah, but for me, by that time, when I got into Santos Bonacci, I was already pretty much out of the conspiracy theory paradigm, because I was getting more into the metaphysics and spirituality, and he kind of delves in that too a little bit. Really, the person that really got me moving that direction was Delbert Blair, Dr. Delbert Blair, and Michael Tessarion. Okay, and really he should be on my top 5, but I had to take someone off, and I took him off. Okay, yeah, maybe it was a velociraptor that he was talking about. Yeah, monitor lizard. That's what I'm saying. I give it the benefit of the doubt. It could have been a lizard, and he just interpreted, a certain type of way. It's psychosis. He saw what he wanted to see. That's possible. Yeah, that's possible. The way I look at it is, I can excuse that. I really could. I can excuse that, because he's telling a story about when he was a child. But the whole pterodactyl thing, that's way, in my mind, that's just way too far. Because it's over LA. Other people would have seen it. Okay, let's get to this, because I want to make sure I know. Yeah, he said that's what he said. I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, here we go. Black-eyed children. Yeah, I remember that one too. Okay, I remember that. Okay, so let's get back to it because I want to make sure we continue to progress. Here we go. So I talked about Jordan Maxwell. I want to play that clip. And again, today I want to get into Alex Collier because he had a major influence on me, especially dealing with aliens and the Palladians, and it just goes on and on and on. You know, the thing is, we could say that too, and you know, we could say, well, you know, what were they? But I think that could be part of it, and for some people, but not for everyone. You know, I've never done any drugs or smoked anything or nothing like that. Alcohol, none of that. Just not, that was not my thing. But I've seen things and I've experienced things that would probably make people say, okay, wait a minute. You know, what are you smoking? Right. And I've said things too, where people are like, wait a minute. So I think in some cases, yeah, that could be applied. But then in other cases, you know, there are phenomena that take place in people's lives that we can't really explain. But even still, there are things that we may think that are extraordinary that take place, and there's a perfectly logical and rational and scientific explanation for it. You know, and I think that that's kind of like the struggle of really trying to determine the balance between the two. Yeah, if y'all hit a like, I appreciate it. We've got about 150 people here. All right, so let's move forward here. We got a lot still yet to get to. Now, Jordan Maxwell talked about the alien agenda and the Anunnaki, right? He also talked about reptilian shapeshifters. That was another one. Excuse me, David Icke, Jordan Maxwell talked about alien agenda and Anunnaki. Reptilian shapeshifters was proposed by Alex Jones. And then, of course, we talked about the X-Files. A lot of that was talked about in the X-Files, and including alien abduction, which brings me to something that I want to play for you all this evening from Credo Mutwa. He was interviewed by David Icke, and Credo Mutwa is a Zulu shaman. And this is a 3 DVD set. It was called The Reptilian Agenda. We played some of it, I believe, in episode number 3. But there's a segment here that I want to play for you guys in this episode, and it's kind of long. Okay, so I just want everyone just to take a deep breath, relax, because it's very important to get to this, because this really influenced me in my perceptions of reality, to the point now when I think about it, I don't even want to even tell y'all. But we'll get to that point if I have enough courage towards the end of this live stream. I'll tell y'all. Okay. All right, so let's get into this. Again, I played, let me say this too. This particular DVD, and I think, no, did I put it on here? Okay, I didn't put it on here. So this particular DVD set, I thought that I had watched it the first time, me and my wife, we watched it, and it was in 2006. But actually, she said that we watched it in and around the time of Hurricane Katrina, which I believe was in 2005. It could have been 2004. So I think it was 2005. But what that would mean is that I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm in 2004. That's the point I want to make here, because I thought I got into it in 2006. No, it was from 2004 up until about 2012. And then I started to kind of transition out of it. So it was really about 8 years altogether. Okay, that was 2000. Okay, so thank you for this. If Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, then I got into conspiracy theories in 2004 when I got introduced to David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret. And as I continued to research and read his books and stuff, I think at a certain point he brought up Credo Mutwa, and that's when I was looking for that DVD set. And then that's our purchased DVD set. We used to watch that over and over and over again. Okay, so I want to play something for you all here now, if you guys don't mind. And I think it's relevant to what we've been talking about. And then after that, I want to, if we have enough time, we'll get into Alex Collier, because it connects to Alex Collier as well. So let me do a screen share here. You guys are going to have to let me know if you can hear the audio, because we've been having issues with that in the past. And we'll start right here. All right, here we go.
In their despair, wise men of the Mashona people, wise men of Matebele people, tried to make Cecil John Rhodes one of them. They told him about the secrets of the Matopo Mountains, that under the Matopo Mountains lies a city of great wisdom, which is the home of last survivors.
Yeah, thanks, Swagonito. And you see right there, that's from Deep Space Nine. It was one of my favorite episodes, the Avatar there, and that's when Captain Sisko He was basically plotting against, what was it? He was trying to get the Romulans to join the war. This is one of the best episodes that in fact, that I believe in Star Wars history, if you will. Excuse me, Star Trek history. All of the episodes, all the series, this is one of the best ones of all time. Okay, the audience, how's it going, your fool? And the lady, thank you so much. Okay, it's good. Okay, SOB, here we go.
Of the Chitauri god beings in that part of Africa. And if you go to the Matopo Mountains and you carry a 4-pound hammer and you strike certain parts of that landscape with that hammer, it gives out a hollow sound which shows you that there are caverns deep underground there. There are 2 sets of mountains. There is the Matopo Mountains, and then to the east of Zimbabwe, there are the great mountains known as the Inyangani, the Weeping Moon Mountains. There, even now, people disappear without trace. Sometimes a person would disappear for several days and reappear a few days later, not knowing where he had been or where she had been. And white people have disappeared there. Black people in their thousands have disappeared there. It was there that I also went missing for 4 days in 1959 in one of the most traumatic experiences of my life.
What happened?
Well, it's a long story, sir. My teacher, Elizabeth Moyo, had sent me to get a special herb which grows only on the foothills of those mountains. It was just an ordinary day like any other, just beautiful day like this one outside here. And I love the African wilderness. I'm at home in the bush, especially in the days when I was still in good health. I love the animals. I love their smell, and I love the smell of the vegetation. And I was looking for this herb when all of a sudden a bright blue mist fell all around me.
Yeah, and there were some questions here, real quick. Is he the one who talks about the pink? I don't know if it was pink, but I don't want to give it away. We'll wait. Just hold on. It's going to be maybe about 5 minutes before he gets to the part that I really want to get to. But I want to allow him to set it up. Lady says, Lenon, today, do you think he's telling his truth or lying? That's an interesting question. I don't think he's lying. I think he's telling his truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what he experienced was reflective of physical reality per se, meaning that it actually happened in the physical domain. It may be something that, you know, he imagined it was so true. And it seemed so real that he believed it to be true. You know, maybe he had a hit. Maybe this was one of his dreams, you know, and let's just to throw it out there. Maybe it did happen. The thing is, I don't have any proof to say that it happened or it did not happen. But back then, because, you know, I was trying to prove, in my mind, I was trying to prove what David Icke was saying. When he's telling these stories, I hear what I want to hear. And because I want to prove, you know, that reptilian shapeshifters are real. And this really confirmed it to me back then. This was like confirmation. Okay. But, you know, that's really what that is again, is confirmation bias. See, if we think that everything is a satanic ritual, then we're going to look to try to see things that we can interpret as a satanic ritual. See what I'm saying? If we think everything is a PD threat, then we're going to look at things in such a way to where we're going to try to confirm that everything is a PD threat. If we think that everything is some sort of it's Satanism, okay, then we're going to look for things, confirmation bias, that would allow us to conclude that theory is correct. So it's quite possible that for Credo Mutwa, as he's going through, you know, this particular experience, whether it is physical or it's mental, right, meaning it's just in his mind, that he interprets it in such a way that it actually happens in the physical. But I mean, who am I to say that it didn't happen? The point is, I didn't have any proof. And see, what's interesting is that even as I watched this back then, it wasn't even so much about what Credo Mutwa was saying and his truth or lack thereof. Okay, if we want to put it that way, if you're a skeptic, it was really the fact that here's an African shaman who's repeating, he's talking about these reptilian, he's talking about the Chitahuri, which are correlate to David Icke's reptilian shapeshifters. And because he's an African, he's also an African shaman, I therefore have to believe that there are reptilian shapeshifters because he's saying it, and then it confirms David Icke. You see? But again, that's me wanting to hear what I want to hear to prove a particular theory. All right. And the theory is that there are these reptilian shapeshifters. Credo Mutwa calls them the Chitahuri. Right? How's it going, Odell? Okay, let's keep going. Here we go.
It took me some time to react to this strange thing. It was a hot day, and all of a sudden, the temperature around me dropped. It was as if I was on the slope of a very cold mountain, but it was a warm day. And then the next moment, I was in what appeared to be a metal-lined tunnel, a caving tunnel. And I was lying on what looked like a workbench, a very large workbench of some kind.
See, even as I'm listening to this now, so I don't need to, you probably know what I'm talking about. There is a Star Trek Next Generation episode where Deanna Troi, Worf, and I think it was Riker, and then there was another person, just a regular crewman or crewwoman on the USS Enterprise. They realized that they had been abducted by some aliens. And then they go through this process of trying to recreate the circumstances in the room that they were in. And it goes on and on and on. And they use the holodeck to do it. And they talk about, they're trying to figure out what type of a table it was. And it ended up being like this, exactly what Credo Mutwa was talking about right here. And then there's these devices, and there's this panel with lighting, and they put all this together, you know, and then towards the end, they realize, yeah, they were abducted, and they find the species that was abducting them. And I remember that I think the species were like reptilian. All right. There we go.
You know, an iron table which an engineer or somebody working with metal would use.
Yeah, what do you mean? That's true. Same with Christianity. What do you mean by that, lady? And maybe that was from earlier. I can't remember. Here we go.
For welding and cutting metal upon. But this workbench was very brightly polished. And there I was lying there with my trousers missing and only my khaki shirt, when I saw again through what appeared to be like blue mist, a number of moving objects, which at first I thought were dolls. And these objects were moving towards me. I noticed with mild surprise that they were very thin, short, human-like creatures with very, very large melon-shaped heads. The creatures had no noses, as human beings have. They had only small little holes on either side of where the nose would be, and their mouths were like knife cuts at the bottom of their faces. And these creatures were coming towards me. In color, they were gray, like certain types of fish, and they wore silvery gray garments which reached up to their necks and up to their wrists. I couldn't see whether they were wearing boots or not at that time. And while I was looking at these creatures, I suddenly was aware that something was above me, standing there, and I looked up straight into the face of one of them, a much taller one than the others. And this creature was wearing a garment, like a tight-fitting overall, without any buttons or anything, which reached up to its neck, but its wrists were bare. I noticed that the creatures had very long fingers. Its fingers had and each of its fingers had an extra joint, and it ended in a claw, a black claw like that of a chicken or a certain kind of bird, and that its thumb was not here, but here in the middle of the hand. And this
Yeah, you see the statues back there? I want to get to that part, okay?
thing was standing above my head and
No, it's not
looking
turtlenecks.
down at me, and I was
not a cat
looking
suit.
at
Stop
its
it.
eyes, which were very strange indeed. It was as if it was wearing plastic goggles over its eyes. I could see its eyes inside these tinted goggles.
I remember when I first watched this, it was so intriguing. To be honest, I feel like ET, we wouldn't be able to understand or communicate with because they would they would be so far advanced. Yeah, the ability for us, let's say, an extraterrestrial species to be able even to travel here, their technology would have to be so far advanced than ours, and their manner of thinking to achieve that level of technology would be so far beyond where we're at as a species here on Earth. Space is massive, you know, and like I said in the beginning, I do believe there's life out there, but it has not been confirmed. But because of the vastness of space, the idea of, you know, in my lifetime, us going or the human species going somewhere to find another life, that's not going to happen. That's not. I mean, we can't even get to. We went to the moon in the 60s. we ain't been back since. You know, the space, and that's just to the moon. Okay, we're not even getting out of our solar system. And then you look at the Milky Way galaxy and how massive that is, and then you look at all the different other galaxies. I mean, it's quite possible that, you know, just in this galaxy there may not be any other life. I don't think so, but just the vastness of it, the amount of time it would take and technology to be able to travel there, it's just beyond human conception right now. But even still, it's possible that there is no life in this galaxy. But in the whole universe, no, there has to be some other form of life out there. I think it's more probable that there is life in the Milky Way galaxy. But the thing is that if extraterrestrial species or extraterrestrials came here, their manner of thinking and the mode of thinking and the technology that they would have that would necessitate a certain level of thinking would be so far beyond what we could conceptualize. They'll probably look at us like, you know, single cell organism, like we look at single cell organism. Okay. Lenon, you should be a family judge. What is that, Odell? What are you talking about? Yeah, they probably just leave. They probably look at that like, look at these fools. Let's get up out of here. This is interesting. Space is massive, but an attitude burns with guilt, no matter feelings. All right, let's get back to it. Yeah, we won't see it in our lifetime. Technology would have to advance by a supreme. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's go.
And
we got about 170 people. If y'all can hit the like, I appreciate it. Here we go.
It had holes on either side here, but it had no nose as I have. Its jaws were very small, and its mouth was a slit with tiny little scale-like things.
What's up,
where
man?
its lips should be. And the creature carried a horrible smell on it. I can't describe that smell. It was a metallic chemical smell, which seemed to combine the smell you would smell when somebody is burning brass or copper, and a very ugly chemical smell. These two smells combined. And this creature was looking down at me. I was frightened, but I could not move. And the next thing I knew was a terrible pain on my left thigh. It was as if somebody had just stabbed me right to the bone. I screamed and I tried to jump away, but my body was inactive. I could not move. I was not tied to any chain. I was not chained to the top of this table. There was no belt tying me, but I could not move my body. And when I looked down at what was happening, I found that one of the shorter creatures had driven something very painful into my left thigh. And then, while I watched, horrified, the creature pulled out this thing, and I saw that it was like a pencil made of shining metal with what appeared to be a flexible cable at the back. And before I could do anything, sir, my head was seized by the creature above me. It caught me on either side of the head like this. And then third creature drove something into my right nostril here. It was as if I had been shot. The pain was so terrible, sir, that I screamed and screamed. Blood filled my mouth. Blood spattered out of the nostril, and the creature did not seem to care. I was stupefied. The pain was so intense, so terrible. And then, quietly, brutally, the creature pulled out the thing that it had stabbed me in the nose with, and blood flowed into my mouth, out of my nostril, and I was choking. And then the big creature coldly turned my head this way so that blood came out of the mouth, and which gave me some kind of relief.
Okay, I mean, there's more. I wanted to get to this one part. Is it okay, chat room, for me to continue this? Because I mean, we could move on. People are making some interesting points inside of the chat room. I've done acid, so I know what this is. Okay, I don't want to say that. I mean, goodness. Okay, sounds like an LSD trip. It was a ritual, some sort of a ritual. I'm sure shamans have access to say, yeah, that's a good point too. Every civilization that was visited by seemingly superior visitors from our own planet, think of the Incas, etc., ending up being destroyed. That's interesting. That's interesting. You want to continue? Okay, we can continue because there's more. There's something else I really want to get to here. Okay, let's go. We'll thank you so much. Okay, we'll continue. All right, here we go.
And after what seemed like an eternity of pain, the creature brought something out of somewhere, which looked like an old-fashioned tea strainer in appearance, and it put this thing close to my nose. And then I seemed to drift away, and the pain subsided. You know, sir, it was torture so intense that even now I can't describe it. And then something else happened.
Yeah, that's the part.
A fourth creature started rummaging between my legs, and it pulled out my organ of manhood and stuck something into that. It was very strange, but I wasn't feeling any pain now. But I could feel the flexible cable moving inside me, right into my body. And then, I can't describe it. It was as if my seed was being sucked out by this small, bright, flexible cable. And then the creature just pulled it out. I screamed and I cried and I screamed, but I could not move. And then something happened.
Okay, we have to stop right here for a moment. And this is why when I first watched this, and really it's not just the first time, because I watched this whole series. It's a 3 DVD set. It's close to 6 hours or something like that. But this section right here, where he's talking about these different aliens, when I first listened to it, I was like, wait a minute, this guy, what's going on here? But I was still intrigued as to, okay, wait a minute, where is this going exactly? And what I found is that the more and more I watched it, the more believable it became. And this is going somewhere too, because I'm going to come back to a point that I made earlier on in this particular episode. And if I have the courage at that point to make that point, then I will. Right? I'm kind of stalling right now. The more I watched it, the more believable it became. But in retrospect, I have to say that Credo never gave, and with all due respect, he never provided any proof. Just like David Icke never provided any proof that reptilian shapeshifters existed. And this is what I mean by we have to be careful. Let me say this another way. If that first alien or the second alien put something into your hip, there should be some sort of a scarring there. If they shove something up in your nose to where it felt like you were shot, I would think there would be some sort of physical evidence of that scarring, disfigurement of part of your nose or somewhere. Does this make sense? Same thing when he talks about this alien that's rummaging, and I would think that there would be some sort of residual to that. And again, I'm not saying that he should show that per se, but the other things I think that those are valid, just questions. But the point I want to get to is, and really expectations, okay, of proof. What I want to get to is that when I watched this initially, I thought this guy was way out there. But the more, and at least at this point when I was watching this section, but the more and more I watched it, because I watched it over and over again, the more believable it became, even though there was no proof that was actually provided. Okay, let's go.
This day still amazes me. After the creature had pulled out the flexible cable from my organ, the creature just stood there looking at my organ. And I was so terrified that I urinated and accidentally urinated against the chest of the creature. It jumped away as if I had shot it, and it stumbled backwards. But its face didn't show any expression.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Let me go back, because he did say that he couldn't feel anything because they put something over his nose. Let me see.
After the creature had pulled out the flexible cable from my organ, the creature just stood there looking at my organ.
I didn't hear him say that.
This day still amazes me. After the creature had pulled out the flexible cable from my organ, the creature just stood there looking at my organ. And I was so terrified that I urinated.
Maybe you're talking about before. Hold on.
A fourth creature started rummaging between my legs, and it pulled out my organ of manhood and stuck something into that. It was very strange, but I wasn't feeling any pain now.
No, he didn't say that. So I just want to be clear about that, because I listened again, and maybe I'm missing it. Maybe you're saying from earlier, but he did say that he couldn't feel pain. So I just want to make sure. Okay, here we go.
But I could feel the flexible cable. And then the creature just pulled it out. I screamed and I cried and I screamed, but I could not move. And then something happened.
This is a good point. Okay. If you saw just a scar, would that even be enough for you to buy it? Meaning, does that prove it? No, not necessarily. You see what I'm saying? But and here's a key point: confirmation bias. I've been talking about that. That if you want to see this as being true, right? If you want to see that Credo was, I was going to say he was abducted by not the reptilian shapeshifters, but the Shitahuri. If you really want to believe it, you might accept. If he showed a scar, you may say, okay, this did happen to him. But that's more of a confirmation bias than it is, clear-cut evidence. I mean, because he could have gotten that when he fell off a tree when he was a kid and I don't know, hit a rock on his nose. I don't know. You see what I'm saying? And this is a key point to all of this, that if I'm trying to prove the theory, let's just say it's a conspiracy theory, that Credo Mutwa was abducted by these aliens, and I'm going into it and I'm simply trying to prove it to be true, then I may look for things that are not even true or real to prove and use that as proof. In other words, confirmation bias. He may say something because it kind of correlates to what his theory is. I'll accept that. Okay, wait a minute, that's proof enough. No, not necessarily. You see? And I've done that. I've done that where I'm trying, like, for instance, with my Michael Jackson analysis, I'm trying to prove that Dr. Wilson Brian Key's theory is true about that Michael Jackson's Beat It video. So there's a confirmation bias. I'm specifically looking for things that would make his theory true. Same thing with Disney, because one of the big major theories about Disney during, and some of you guys may remember this, was that first of all, that Disney was satanic, that it promoted pedophilia, it promoted sexualized content, even though it's supposed to be for children. And I remember there was this one theory where, and I can't even remember, it may have been David Icke. I can't remember who it was. It may have been Transformation of America, or in that book, or Thanks for the Memories, but someone had proposed it. And it was someone within that side of the conspiracy theory paradigm, not so much as the alien abduction and alien stuff. But they said that under the surface of Disneyland, so you know how if you go to Disneyland, you're walking on top, but that under there's all these tunnels, and that children are trafficked through these tunnels because Disney is a pedo ring. And that's one of the theories that I bought into because I had young children. I was so fearful of that. That was my greatest fear. So what ends up happening is, in my mind, I accept that theory, and then I go through the process of trying to prove that theory to be true. And so based on confirmation bias, anytime if I would see a child in a Disney movie, and they have a problem with putting children in these situations that, in my opinion, they shouldn't put these children. Oftentimes the children, they're not there with their parents. The parents are not there. They're interacting with adults that don't know them. That just, to me, it just confirmation bias. But the point is that if you want to prove this theory that Disney, that's what they're promoting on a subliminal level, if you will, then you're going to look for that. And you're going to try to find things that fit that particular mode. And for me, it was because of fear that I'm trying to prove this to be true. And if I can prove this to be true, then I can keep everyone protected from this pedophilic institution. See, but that's not proof. It's not proof enough. You see, it's just someone trying to find a way to prove a particular theory to be true. You see, so this is to say that if in the case of Credo, let's say if Credo said, listen, I do have this scar right here on my nose. At the time when I saw this, that probably would have been enough for me to buy into it fully without any conclusive evidence, because that could be from something else. You see? So this is a very good point that you made right here. And I don't know why your picture looks like that with the guy, and I don't know what kind of tennis he's playing. He looks like he should be on a basketball court right now. And I don't get it. But let's move on. Okay, George Clinton and Bootsy Collins had an encounter with aliens here in Michigan, but we all know that they did psychic. Yeah, we know that. That's pretty much all they did. Let me stop playing. I don't know. He may have. I have no idea. All right. Let me scroll down here. I just want to see if there's any other comments here dealing with this. And then there's just a little bit more of this, and I want to move on. We already had 1 hour and 20 minutes. If we are to consider that aliens exist and they have the technology and intelligence to get here, I always wondered why they have to do invasive probing to experiment on. Yeah, I know. That's a good point. If they have the technology to traverse the universe, or at least partially traverse the universe, then they probably have the technology where they wouldn't have to do any type of probing, into the human body. That they can, just like in Star. If you guys look at Star Trek, they don't do that. They don't have scalpels and stuff like that. They use like they have scanners, but if they have to do surgery, often what they do is they'll use the teleportation device to take one thing out and put something else in. And in some cases, yeah, they may open people up, but it's not like they're experimenting on people. So why would these extraterrestrial life come here? And if they got this, they have to have this advanced technology, but they have a need to. It's just, this is a very good point. All right. Let me just check in here real quick before we move on. Bobby Hemmett said the government be abducting people acting like aliens. Okay. Yeah, I got into Bobby Hemmett. That's when I started getting into spirituality and metaphysics. Him, Dr. Valentine, Dr. Delbert Blair, those other people too. Yeah, thanks for tuning on in. Just make sure you come on back and watch the beginning of this. And if you guys haven't seen the other episodes, take the time to watch. Unfortunately, even if the story was somehow true, it doesn't really advance our understanding of other life because none of it is evidence-based. So that's a good point too. Okay. Yeah, I know. Listen, the transformation of America, it messed me up bad. I mean, my fear level went exponential, especially the fear that I had for my children. A lot of my production work was just me and my fear of things that might happen to my children at a certain point. I'm still hypervigilant to this day. But that book right there, that's what I told people in the beginning, because I don't know if you were here post-mod in the beginning, but I showed pictures of that book, Transformation of America, and Thanks for the Memory. And I told people, don't read those. That messed me up bad. I wish I had not read those ones. Okay. Yes, this is true. This is true. All right. Yeah. All right, let's get back to it, people. Here we go.
Which to this day still amazes me. After the creature had pulled out the flexible cable from my organ, the creature just stood there looking at my organ. And I was so terrified that I urinated and accidentally urinated against the chest of the creature. It jumped away as if I had shot it, and it stumbled backwards. But its face didn't show any expression. Its mouth didn't even open, but the way the creature reacted, trembling all over, it was as if I had really hit it, but it was wearing this kind of garment. And after that, I was left alone, except for the big creature, which stood to my right side this time, with its arms folded, looking down at me. And then, while I was looking at this creature, trying to appeal to it, no pain anymore, no pain, please, I was pleading. Pictures suddenly flooded.
See, but there we go. The person brought this up right before. He said that he didn't feel pain because they put something over his nose, but then now he's saying, I don't know. Now, I don't know. This is Credo Mutwa, okay? Well, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. I didn't catch his story from the beginning, but it's sounding like a urologist. I don't know. Listen, I don't know, but he has figures. That's why I want to show you guys the figures. Hold on one second. If you guys just hold on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to be this long. No pain anymore, but I know. I'm just going to let it go. Here we go.
My mind, pictures of buildings sunk in a red lake of water, buildings rotting away, buildings that appeared as if they had been bombed.
And you see that I didn't notice that, but now that I'm looking at, and I've watched this literally over 100 times, but way back in the day, I think it was 2000, 2004, 2005.
Sunk in a red lake of water, buildings rotting away.
Isn't that Princess? I mean, isn't that what's her name? She just passed. Rest in peace. I can't with you guys in the chat room. I just can't. Not tonight. All right, please stop. Listen, I'm sorry. Isn't that the Prince? What's the Queen of? Yeah, Queen Elizabeth. I was gonna say the Queen of England. Why would she be on there though? And I know that they, this is South Africa. I get that, but that's just, and then see, it fits with David Icke and what his focus was on. That's just a little bit, I don't know. Okay. I don't know who the other two people are. All right. Okay. Let's continue.
Buildings that appeared as if they had been bombed and cities sunk in terrible mud.
I'm trying to have a serious show. Will you stop?
Like rotten ghosts, trees without leaves, without.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to show that one yet because you guys. All right. Yeah, he is. Actually, he is. He's incredible. I'm bringing this because I'm going to tie this back in. I know people are goofing off, but I'm going to tie this back in because I want to illustrate to people when we close out the show, and we're almost done. We'll probably get to Alex Collier in the next. We'll get to him. We'll have to do him in the next live and episode number 5 because we're already an hour and 30 minutes in. But I said this in episode 3 that he's remarkable. He's a genius. He was, so rest in peace. But I'm playing this section because it impacted me in a profound way. And that's what I really want to get to here. Okay. And then it ties to what I was saying inside the beginning of this particular live stream. So just bear with me. Okay. Here we go.
Branches sticking out of the mud as if they'd been poisoned. I saw visions of this. And then, through an entrance which I had not seen before, came a strange and terrible beings.
Yeah, here we go right here.
It was exactly like this. It was tall, made entirely of metal, with burning eyes and a snout. It didn't do anything. It just moved and came to stand at my left side. It didn't touch me or anything like that. It just stood there, making a strange humming sound. Wow, 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 like that.
Mm.
And then, from behind this metal creature, there appeared another creature. It was so radically different from the gray creatures in that it looked exactly like an earthly human being. It had a pink skin like that of a white woman. It had golden hair, and its ears were definitely pointed like those of an animal. Its eyes were slightly slanting. They were pale blue. And
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at Credo. I'm laughing at these people. You guys, what you're saying here. Come on. All right. You guys. All right, here we go.
Never once did they blink. It was like this, nude. And there was a tail-like appendage at its back, which was very visible as it walked away after it had done to me what it did. What this thing did, it climbed over me and made love to me. And I noticed that unlike normal women, its breasts were set too high in its chest, and they were very, very hard in appearance. And that here, the pubic hair as well as the hair in the armpits was a fiery red, as if it had been dyed. And this thing didn't even blink. Its eyes were just like this, looking at you as if there was no liquid in the eyes, just an unblinking, terrible stare. And it was a small creature, about the size of a 16-year-old girl, but it was very, very heavy as it sat on top of me. And there was no emotion in that whole nonsense. There was no, I just, and then the creatures.
You know what? I haven't watched this in so long, but now hearing him, I don't know. That's he said that she was the size of a 16-year-old, but that she was very heavy. And that she had red, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. And now that I'm hearing this now, what?
Took me out of that room after the metal creature and this pink creature had gone. This creature took me out of that room, assisted by another one. And they pushed me along a corridor which curved slowly in that direction, towards my right. And there I was shown many things which even today I don't understand. I was shown little versions of this creature swimming in huge cylinders made out of what looked like glass, in a pinkish liquid, like ugly little frogs inside the liquid. They looked like aborted human fetuses. They were very, very terrible and disgusting. And then we came to another room, and there I saw a number of people undergoing the same torture that I had undergone. One particular person whom I passed very close to was a white man, definitely a European, with a yellowish beard and mustache and long, straggly blood-crusted hair. This man looked into my eyes and I looked into his eyes. And we were so close we were as I went past him. Then, to cut a long story short,
Wow.
I found myself in the bush again. But I was wearing only my shirt. My boots were gone, and so was my trousers. So I took off my shirt and wore it around my waist as a loincloth. And I started traveling, not knowing really in which direction I was.
Wow. You know what? I'm just flabbergasted because I believe this guy's story. Back when I watched this, I remember I first watched the first couple times, like, no. But then I watched it over and over again. The more I watched it, then I was like, okay. Now, I'm not trying to discredit his story. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying this is one of the traps of getting into conspiracy theories, because you may want to believe in something, and even though there's no evidence to prove something to be true, you're still going to look for things that prove it to be true. And that's where we get into confirmation bias. See, so what I'm getting at is his story basically provides confirmation bias. It confirms my belief that there are reptilian shapeshifters as described by David Icke. And that's how I got into the conspiracy theory paradigm. I'm talking about full into it. Prior to that, it was the X-Files going way back before, right? But now that I'm listening to this story being told with you all right now, it's amazing that I just believed it. Now, some of y'all may believe it, and that's okay. I guess that's okay. But where is the proof of it? And there is none. And that's the point. But there's something deeper here. And I really didn't want to talk about this, but as I've listened, and we didn't get to Alex Collier in this, but we'll get into Alex Collier in the next episode. I'll make that promise. But as I was listening to Alex Collier and getting some timestamps together, I was trying to find the section where he brings out the different, I want to say characters, but the figurines, whatever. As I was finding those sections and listening to a part of what he was saying, something clicked in my mind that takes me back to when I was 22 years old. And if you're tuning in a little bit later, okay, you probably didn't hear me say this, but I'm going somewhere with all of this. Got 186, almost 190 people. If you hit the like button, I appreciate it. I had two dreams that I remember. I mean, I've had a lot of dreams. We all have, but there's two dreams that I remember that are directly related to what we've been watching here. And the first dream was looking up into the sky and seeing these massive UFOs, meaning flying saucer shaped, right, UFOs, because that's kind of like what people have been talking about forever. And then the second dream was at a certain point, those saucers, whatever the beings were in those saucers, that they were chasing me. They were trying to capture me, and that I was abducted, and that they implanted this device inside of my chest. It's a whole big, it was like a sci-fi movie X-Files type of thing, and it scared the mess out of me. It's like, it wasn't even a dream, it was a nightmare. Oh my goodness, here we go. So those are dreams that I had, and I remember them, and I even wrote them down. I remember I had this book I used to write things down in, and they scared me so bad that I wrote those inside of this like a journal. But I want to tell y'all something, and this is what I mean by I went too deep into the rabbit hole, and how I was accepting things without any evidence. And a lot of my earlier documentary work in conspiracy theories, it really was me trying to confirm these theories that other people had. You know, whether that is Dr. Wilson Brian Keyes, his theory about Beat It, the theory about Disney being having taken children underneath Disneyland in these secret tunnels and trafficking children, and that they're promoting pedophilia or PD, I'll say PD subliminals in their movies. Everything is satanic. You know, the Super Bowl halftime show is a satanic ritual. The award show ceremony with Madonna, and I did that too. I did that's satanic too, and it just goes on and on and on. There are real life consequences to when we start to accept things, and then we're trying to confirm them ourselves, not based on evidence that other people provide that proves any given theory to be true, but because simply we want to believe. And so I'm going to say this. I told you guys about the two dreams that I had. But the thing is that as I watched Credo Mutwa tell these stories about being abducted, it's not just him, there's other people too, but hearing him, and I've watched this video literally over 100 times. The whole, there's 3 DVD set. I believed what he was saying, no evidence. I believed David Icke with the reptilian shapeshifters. I watched the X-Files. There was other stuff out there. Y'all remember what's the show? Coast to Coast, which I think his name was George Norrie. There was another guy too, Art Bell. I used to listen to that show. They talked a lot about alien abduction. Well, I got to the point in my mind where I started, it's delusion. I started to think, at first I used to think just, you know what, maybe those weren't dreams that I had. I'm just considering this as a possibility because the truth is out there. Maybe these aren't just dreams. Maybe I did see UFOs, and maybe they were chasing me, and maybe they did capture me, and maybe they did implant some sort of device in my chest. And that maybe soon turned into a belief. Would I have done that? Would I have gotten to that point if I had not heard Credo Mutwa? No, because I already watched X-Files for all that way before. But it was this: you have an African who's an African shaman. He's brilliant. He really is. I read all of his books. His books are like this thick. He's an African shaman. He's an incredible person. If you guys go listen to him talk, he's passed away, rest in peace. But because I watched this over and over again, and I wanted to believe, then I started to conflate my own reality with things that were just dreams. Now, this is what I mean by it's a very dangerous place to be when you go so deep that you lose yourself and you start believing in things, and things that you know were not true, that they were not based on reality. It's just dreams. But then you start to think that maybe they're not dreams. And then you start to think, wait a minute, this is real. And see, that's why I think this series is important. And that's not even the worst of it. Okay. Because in my journey, I went so deep into the rabbit hole that there's so many different things that just my sense of what was reality and even what was important. You know, instead of taking and handling business for my family, all I'm doing is watching conspiracy theory videos. I'm focusing on the wrong things. That has real life consequences. I have so many regrets about that. So many. And that's what I'm saying. We have to be careful. There's nothing wrong with exploring the conspiracy theories, even getting to conspiracy facts. There's nothing wrong with it. But when it begins to affect you on that way, in that way, now you need to take a step back. You do not want to go down the path that I went down, where now I'm accepting dreams that I had years prior. T 22 years old. So by the time I'm 27, 5 years later, around 5 years later, and because I'm watching Credo tell these stories and I believed in them so much, I'm starting to change my sense of reality to fit what he's talking about, confirmation bias. Okay. Sickler said, Lenon, where can I go and have this? Will you stop? Come on. Boy, you guys need to stop. Oh my God. Okay, all right. That's that alien love. Let me stop. Because this show's supposed to be serious, man. This show's supposed to be serious, okay? Somebody want that conscious. Let me stop. All right. Somebody want that cosmic. All right, let's move on. Philip sent a super chat too. Thank you so much, Philip, for the super chat. I think you probably sent a super sticker. I just can't see it on my end. I appreciate the super chat. Also, thanks to Sick Lid. Anyone else who sent in super chats, thank you so much. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, and my wife, she just showed up, so let's see what she had to say here. After the first time watching his series, I was too busy with the kids when they were little, but I remember you watching. Yeah, I watched it again and again, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, and my wife and I've talked a lot about my regrets with her, especially after I graduated. There's so much that I could have been doing for the family, and I was so caught up in all of this. And I know I've mentioned David Icke, I've mentioned Alex Jones, Credo Mutwa, Alex Collier. We'll get to him in the next episode. I've mentioned Jordan Maxwell. There are so many other people that I got into, and I was just all over the place, you know. And sometimes too, I think it's important to recognize that if you're consuming too much information too quickly, and there's no order to it, you start to pick and choose things to connect with each other that really have no connection to each other. And that's another dangerous place to be, you know. And the truth is that during that time period, I got so caught up in the conspiracy theory paradigm. I brought my wife into it. I wish I didn't do that. And I remember at a certain point, we would research together and talk about different conspiracies. And but for me, I've spent way too much time doing it. Way too much time. I have so many regrets about that. Okay. All right. And I just didn't watch it again. I watched it over and over and over again. Yeah. You sometimes fly in your dreams? Okay. All right. I don't. I'll be on the ground. I can't go nowhere. I've definitely seen some unexplainable things in my lifetime. Yeah, I have too. I have too. There's quite a few things that I've seen that I can't explain. You know, was it a spiritual event? Was it, you know, there's plenty I've had. And as you can see, all of us, I think all of us, we've had that. Reoccurring things are kind of free. Yeah, they can be. Yeah. Excuse me. I tell you what, there is confirmational bias, confirmation bias, and there is also things we can't explain. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let me show this and then we're going to be done. So I want to show this clip right here. How's it going, CM LaCour? So again, this is a 3 DVD set. My wife and I remember we watched it together, and she's the one that remembered that it was during around the time of Hurricane Katrina, but which would mean that I got into conspiracy theories probably in 2004, and I got into David Icke about 2000. By 2005, this was where I was really focusing in on the alien stuff. But there's something else I want to show here. Again, X-Files talked a lot about alien abduction, okay, way before I got into conspiracy theories. And I want to point this out, because when you start to think that, you start to question your dreams to the point where you're saying, okay, maybe that really happened. Okay, that's a mental health issue. When you get to the point where you say, wait a minute, that wasn't a dream, that really happened. Okay, that's a mental health issue. And during that time period, over the course of a number of years, anxiety, paranoia, hypervigilance, and there it is, delusion. Delusion is a false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. Let me read that again because I messed it up. A false belief or judgment about external reality held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. I had no evidence that I was abducted or that I saw UFOs, but in my mind, after watching Credo Mutwa give these stories, and then also other people give their stories, I began to believe that that's exactly what, and you know, it ain't even just that, because there was a time period where if anytime I saw something in flying by and I couldn't define it what it was, well, it's an unidentified flying object. It must be a UFO, and therefore it must be an alien. Okay, but what if it was just a bird that you can't really tell that it was a bird because it's too far away? Or what if it's some sort of a plane, but you can't really tell that it's a plane? So what? It's yeah, okay, well, it is. That's unidentified flying object. Well, it must be aliens. Okay. That's what I mean. Going down the rabbit hole, we can get to the point of delusion, and that's a very dangerous place to be. Okay, so this has been episode number 4. I believe that there is life beyond our planet. However, to date, it has not been proven to be true. What happens when we want to believe it to be true? How far do we go to prove it true without conclusive proof? All right. Okay, so this has been episode number 4. Before we close out, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask inside the chat room. Just make sure you say question, and then that way I can pick it out and then post your question there. In the next episode, we'll get into Alex Collier, because he actually had a huge impact on me, not just Credo Mutwa and his stories, but Alex Collier, because I got into him. He talked about the alien agenda. He was an alien contactee. He talked about unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, aliens and extraterrestrials, and Andromedans, the interdimensional reptilians, Orion and Mars reptilians. Sound familiar? And then, of course, I want to mention Dr. Delbert Blair, because I got into him as well. He talked about alien agenda, he was an alien contactee, alien extraterrestrials, black extraterrestrials, and metaphysics and spirituality. And that's really how I really started to move into the whole spirituality and metaphysical space, was through Dr. Delbert Blair. But before that, I was getting into the alien conspiracy information. Okay, so this has been episode number 4. I want to thank you all again for tuning on. Any last topics? Yeah, that's a good question. Great topic. Then what is real? Right, yeah. Well, the way I look at it is proof. Okay. And evidence in and of itself is not proof, because people can make up evidence. They can frame things in a particular way. They can create a narrative. I mean, a person can take a video clip and just take a very small section of it and play that in no context. And then therefore it can be perceived to be what is real, but it's really not. If you give the context, then it makes more sense, right? Then you really know what the person is saying, that type of thing. So I think reality has to be based on evidence that conclusively proves any given thing, right? All right. So let me look in here. Oh yeah, I talked about the dreams earlier. So I had two specific dreams. I've had plenty of dreams, but there was two specific dreams that correlate to what we've been talking about during this live stream. And one was that I looked up and I saw these aliens, saucer shaped, huge in the sky. And then there was another dream where these I was trying to get away from, because they were trying to capture me, if you will, abduct me. And I was trying to get away. They ended up capturing me, and then they ended up putting some sort of a device in my chest. And it's a dream. I mean, I woke up. It was really a nightmare. I wake up, but what ends up happening is years later, years down the line, as I get into the conspiracy theory paradigm dealing with alien stuff, right? The alien agenda. And then I'm watching this particular video that we were just playing. I watched it many, many times. My wife told her, I remember we watched it together. Okay, but she says that she remembers me watching it over and over again. Yeah, I watched it over and over again. And what ends up happening as I listened to Credo Mutwa tell his story, and he talked about being abducted. Alex Collar does too. So we'll get into that in the next episode. As he talked about getting abducted, then I start to question, wait a minute, maybe those weren't dreams. And it's one thing to say maybe they weren't, okay? But then when you say, wait a minute, those weren't dreams, those things really happened. Okay, now we're getting into some mental health issues. What this really speaks to, though, is the impact that this information can have on people. You know, and I didn't go into listening to Credo Mutwa with the idea that I'm going to try to figure out a way to make this dream a reality. It's just through repetition and watching it over and over again, there was something about it that compelled me to at least consider that it wasn't just a dream, even though it was, but then to believe that it wasn't a dream, even though it was. Okay. Again, someone had mentioned too in one of the previous episodes how they had asked, is there a thin line between conspiracy and, I think they said something, insanity or mental health. And I don't think that there is a thin line. What I think is that over time, if we go down the rabbit hole without any balance, that we can slip into certain levels of delusion, you know, fear, anxiety. I dealt with all that, you know, I dealt with all that. Anxiety, fear, delusion, paranoia was the biggest one. You know, seeing things that aren't there, you know, seeing things to prove conspiracy theories to be true. It's just not a good place to be. Right. All right. Regrets. Yeah, but that's how many of us found you. I loved your early work, too, because it inspired critical thinking, always fact check. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a lot of regrets. You guys know that. I tell you. Never mind. No computer. All right. I'm just looking for any final questions. Again, thank you all so much for tuning on in. See, I wish there were support groups to share experiences with others who can relate. Yeah, I agree. That's why I think that this series is important, because many of you, you've gone through it. You are a lucky man. You have been my, what you talking about? You talking about my wife? Yeah, I'm like, she's awesome. She really is. Philip says, disconnect when you get information overload. Take a trip out in nature. That helps me to come. Yeah, but I wasn't doing that. You know, I wasn't doing that when I was. It was like I would go to work and I'm thinking about conspiracy theories. I'm listening to Coast to Coast. I had I don't know where the slide is, but I have a slide. Let me see real quick if I still have it on here. No, for some reason. Yeah, it has to be on here somewhere. Maybe I skipped over it, but I have a slide of Coast to Coast, because I would listen to that while I was in the car, and that was a lot. It was more a lot of it was alien stuff, alien abduction, and all that type of thing. Yeah, for some reason I'm not seeing it on here, but I do have that. I'll show it in the next episode. Who will not think you're crazy? Well, at least not in. Yeah, I know. Let me get down here. I'm just looking for any final questions. Yeah, I know it messed me up real bad. I mean, it really did. It ended up taking, it took, I mean, altogether from 2004 to 2012, we're talking 8 years, but I didn't fully come out of it. I mean, probably for like a decade. That's a long time. I mean, that's a decade that could have been going towards, you know, my family, you know, like really focusing on. Again, I was present, I was active, but that's time that you don't get back. You know what I'm saying? And I have a lot of regrets about that. You know, it's interesting. My daughter said this, because we're doing a lot better now, and I thank the Lord for that. But we've been doing a lot better, especially over the last 2 years or so. But my daughter told me something a couple of maybe about a year ago, it might be a year and a half, and she was saying how she misses the good old days. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she was referring to you know, times where as a family we were a lot closer because it was just us. We did everything together. You know, we living in a small house. You know, we were interacting all day, every day. It was us. You know, now we live in a much larger house, and you know, they're off and they're doing their thing, and you know, I'm doing my thing. My wife is doing her thing. So it's a lot different than what it was, but it was a struggle, though, a lot more of a struggle back then. And part of that struggle was the result of me getting caught up in the conspiracy theory paradigm. So what I'm getting at is that even during those difficult times, there was a lot of happiness there, though, too. You know, a lot of struggles, but there was a lot of material struggles. But we were much closer together as a family. But what happens as we mature and as children get older, you know, they want to do their own thing anyway, you know. But when my daughter told me that, I just thought about it, and it's true that I can see how a child would kind of miss those days. And I kind of missed those days too. But I wish that I had spent more time handling business for my family than spending so many years just consumed by conspiracy theories. Yeah. I had a dream that a relative passed before it happened. I wasn't close to them and hadn't dreamed about them before. Yeah, I had a, I'll tell you this real quick, just because I don't want people to think that somehow you know, there aren't extraordinary or spiritual types of events that happen, because I've had my fair share. But I remember when I was in college the first time, I was laying in the bed, like kind of sleep, but kind of not sleep. You guys ever had that? And I felt this presence, like someone's in there, and whatever it was, and it wasn't nobody in there, it was just me. But whatever it was, they sat down on the edge of the bed, because you can feel it, them sitting down, whatever it was. And in my mind, I'm thinking that, okay, there's someone in here, and they just sat down on the bed. And then it just, whatever it was, just kind of disappeared. And it wasn't nothing fearful about it or anything like that. And later on that day, a relative called me and told me that the man who raised my father, which I consider to be my grandfather, he had passed away. And in my mind, I just felt like, okay, that was his spirit, if you will, you know, coming to say bye to me, or, you know, that's how I perceived that. Now, is it possible that I was dreaming? Yeah, it's possible. Is it possible that, you know, I don't know. It is, but that's how I interpreted it. And I still believe it to be something like that. I remember when he was, because yeah, he wasn't doing well, and it was clear that he wasn't going to be living much longer. And I remember I took a trip down there to just go see him one last time. And he was laying in the bed looking real sickly. He didn't know that I entered the room, but then when he realized that I was there, he quickly tried to get himself up. I think it was more like, I want my grandson to see me. I don't want him to see me, you know, in that state. So he kind of got up, and then I sat down on the edge of the bed, and I was talking to him. And I said, and I remember I asked him, I said, is there anything you need me to do for you? And he says, no, son, there's nothing. No, I'm good. But anyway, how do I explain what I experienced? I could say that I was hallucinating. You know, I could say that maybe I was dreaming. But what I thought was that it was my grandfather saying bye. And that's how I interpreted that. I've had quite a few experiences like that. So I'm not here to dismiss, you know, spiritual events or extra or paranoia, normal events or anything like that. I'm not here to dismiss that. But what I am saying is that if someone is going to make a claim, whatever the claim may be, that they should have the evidence that proves that claim or proves that theory. And so much of the conspiracy theory paradigm didn't do that. There's plenty of conspiracy theories that are conspiracy facts. So don't get me wrong, but there's so much that I got into that was not fact-based and I believed, and that's regrettable, right? Okay. Question: do you believe watching these videos over and over in a sense hypnotize you? I think that I wouldn't say hypnotize. I would say that it began to impact how I perceive things in a way to where it was more delusion than it was reality. That's what I would say. And it's not something that happened overnight. It's over time, and then I stopped focusing on things that really mattered. I started focusing on, what's the next conspiracy theory and what's the, and there were so many, there were so many back then. And again, like I said, I have so many regrets about that time period, but it's part of the journey. And that's what this series is about. I just hope that, especially if you're younger and you watch this, you may be into conspiracy theories. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Just be careful, All right. Thanks, Tata, for the question. Any other questions? I'm just looking down here. I'm scrolling down to the bottom and we're going to be done for this evening. Question: what day is episode 5? It may be tomorrow because I want to get into Collier and it won't be that long. I just want to get into him, and there's plenty more to get into as well. But maybe tomorrow, we can do it tomorrow. I got something coming up special for you all on Saturday. Okay, so be looking forward to that. If I do it tomorrow, I'll set it up before I go to work in the morning, and that way I give people enough time to put it on your busy schedule. Okay. Reality is subjective. I always used to say reality is relative, which is the same thing. It's relative, Yeah, if y'all can hit the like button, I appreciate it. And thanks everyone too for being here. Alex Collier talked about being invited onto an alien ship. He said some alien children there saw him and were instantly terrified as they know about. Oh yeah. Let's see. Question: have you heard of Dr. Kareem Ibrahim in biogeometry, the relationship between shapes and the Earth's energy? No, but I don't know if you're talking about ley lines. I got into that a little bit. I didn't get into that deeply, but I haven't heard of him. Dr. B says, I love your honesty, Lenon. Always refreshing. You are so right. Delusion is yeah, I agree. And I've been there. Trust me. A lot of my conspiracy theory work, it was based upon delusions and me trying to prove conspiracies to be true. And that's a very dangerous place to be, because it's confirmation bias. I'm seeing things to prove that something is true, but in reality, what I'm seeing is not that. I'm just trying to prove these conspiracy theories to be true. Same thing with reptilians. I went so deep into that. Anyone who was talking about reptilians or whatever, I was watching. Okay, yeah, well, that's more. But it wasn't until I watched Credo and then Credo Mutwa and he tells this story that I was like, wait a minute, it has to be true. But now when I'm watching it now with wisdom, what did I say? I watched it. Me and my wife watched it the first time in 2000. We watched it the first time in 2005. When was Hurricane Katrina? I think it was 2005. Yeah. So, I mean, that's. I just want to say it was just such a so many years in the conspiracy theory paradigm. From 2005 to 2004. Then I watched this Reptilian in 2005, but I'm in the conspiracy theory from 2004 to 2012. That's 8 years. Wow. All right. I agree. I still appreciate his early works, and I still have his book Deep in the Garden of. Yeah, I mean, there's things to appreciate from my early works. I think there's things there, but there's a lot of there that is just me reaching, trying to prove certain conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories about Disney being a pedophilic institution. I had a documentary where that was the title of it. Conspiracy theories about a lot of it dealt with my fears, and one of my major fears was pedophiles, PDs. That was my greatest fear. So in movies, music, lyrics, music videos, television shows, anything that I could interpret as being like some pedophilic threat, I would interpret it that way. And it got so bad to where we didn't even have a TV in the home. I didn't want our children being exposed to anything. You know, we wouldn't let them watch Disney films, you know, unless we watched them in advance. That's extremism, you see. But that just goes to show you how we can get so caught up and then we become delusional. And then we're also hyper vigilant about things. And it wasn't just media, meaning movies and television shows. It got to the point where I started to see people as these threats, these PD threats, even though they didn't present any threat whatsoever. I'm still hyper vigilant to this day, but that is, well, I tell you, that's not a good place to be, mentally speaking. Deep in the Garden of Conscience, yeah, that's when I got into the metaphysics and spirituality. And there's a lot of that comes out of Dr. Delbert Blair. So you guys see the transition. You know, I got into the Illuminati and the Bilderbergs and more like the Alex Jones stuff, martial law, and then I started to get in. Well, initially, of course, it was David Icke, but there's a connection between those two in terms of the information. But David Icke got more at a certain point, got into reptilians and spirituality too, and metaphysics. But there's this transition that takes place. By the time I get into Dr. Delbert Blair, that's when I start to at least start taking steps away from the conspiracy theory paradigm that I was used to. But then I jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire, where now it's spirituality and metaphysics. So what I'm getting at is deep in the Garden of Consciousness, there are concepts in there that if you guys listen to Dr. Delbert Blair, he talks about certain things, but he talks about them in different terms. But in terms of his influence on me and how I began to perceive reality, he had a major impact. Question: you had a documentary about the caterpillar evolving into a butterfly. Was that related to metaphysical conspiracy? No, that was part of a book, because I used to write novels. When I lived in Atlanta with my wife, I wrote books and music. I did a music album and I wrote a whole bunch of like short novels. And one of the novels was dealing with, it was a story called The Coming of Cato. And it's just a small section of a larger work, but I thought that it was really interesting. I actually produced a video version of it years ago, and we actually the audio was good in terms of voiceover. It was also good in terms of the music was good too. I had a friend in San Diego that I did the music for it, but I ran out of money, and what ended up happening was I didn't have enough money to pay the digital artist. And she was really good too, but she was asked, I just could not afford that. So I ended up producing it, and I did it myself, but the video quality or the graphic quality was horrible. It really was. I mean, that would be a project that I could see myself like redoing and then being able to pay, at this point, being able to pay a digital artist, because it really was a good story. But it's really sourced out of these novels that I wrote. And Cato was just one of the characters of many inside of those particular novels. And they all related to each other too. Really interesting stuff. What's up, Destin Carm? We're almost done. Yeah, it was simpler times. That's what I was talking about earlier. Life was a lot simpler, but really I was so mixed up in the conspiracy theories paradigm. Again, like, you know, we were always together, you know. And I miss those days, but that's also part of life and just growing with a family. Your children, they're going to get grown and they're going to be wanting to do what they want to do and spend time with their friends and all that stuff. But then I do miss those days way back in the day. You know, that's the thing. I want to say this, that I don't want people to get it misconstrued. It wasn't that my time in the conspiracy theory was all bad. It was a simpler time in terms of our family. Our family was a lot closer. Okay. But again, we grow, right? And people grow and they want to do their own thing. That's part of life. They become adults. But I also want to mention that we had a lot of wonderful times too. It's just I tend to talk about the rough times to teach lessons. But I miss those days though too, on a certain level, because we were a lot closer family. We did everything together, you know. My wife and I, we spent more time with each other too back then. That's why we got all these babies. All right. Prerequisite to reject a conspiracy theory. It has to have an acceptance criteria, because if you don't know what its presence look like, then you can't assert its. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Someone said that was a ghost. No, I don't think so. You didn't know the ghost. All right. All right. Okay. I think we're done. I don't see any other questions. Amira says real quick, my cousin was standing on a stairway lined with women. Of the women I recognized, they had already passed. A week later, my mom told me she was in the hospital. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. The fear-based series you had, I think, is even more prevalent in today's time. Yeah, but I think you're talking about where I was talking about fear-based mind control. Yeah, I agree. But by that time, I think I had progressed beyond the paranoia to a degree, you know, and the needing to the confirmation bias. That was a huge problem for me. And the fear has subsided to a different degree. So that's what I'm saying. I think I came into more balance later on than earlier on. That's for sure. Right. Philip says, question, what's the next step in your educational growth? Are you considering a PhD in data? No, I was thinking about it for a while. I was thinking about going for a master's, but I just don't have it in me. It took a lot out of me physically, especially getting the bachelor. I got a bachelor's in data and cybersecurity. Educationally, I'm working on Network Plus, and I haven't been reading like I should, but I want to get the certification for Network Plus and also network security and A Plus. I'm waiting on a job position. I'm hoping that a job position opens up so I can apply at my current employer because I want to stay with them. But if not, then I'll look out elsewhere. I have been looking elsewhere, but I really want to stay with the company. It's been very good to me. They paid for college, you know. It was such a blessing. All right. Yeah, because Terrence Howard gave up on his whole very accomplished acting career to play with shapes. Huh? What are you talking? What happened? I don't even know what you're talking about. What happened to Terrence? I thought he's still doing things. Then when did you feel safe enough to go outside with less anxiety? That's a good question. Because I remember back in the day, well, I didn't like going anywhere. And I made horrible decisions too, because I remember just not wanting to be out in the world. That had consequences too, you know, not just being fearful of the Illuminati and helicopters, the black helicopters. Boy, I tell you. When did I feel safe enough to go outside with less anxiety? I would say probably, well, no, the truth is once I got deeper into the metaphysics, I think it was easier for me to kind of deal with the world. I still had a long way to go because I still had one foot in or one toe in to the conspiracy theory paradigm. But I think that's when I started to transition and I wasn't so fearful like I had been and not so the anxiety and paranoia. The paranoia was heavy. That was one of the heavy aspects of my conspiracy theory journey. If nothing else, the paranoia and the delusion. You know, I said this before, and then we're going to be done. Initially, when I got into conspiracy theory paradigm, I thought that the Illuminati or the global elite, you know, the reptilian shapeshifters, whatever you want to throw out there, that they were targeting humanity for different reasons: population reduction, mind control, you know, media manipulation. List goes on and on. Subliminal messages. I can go on and on and on. But at a certain point, my anxiety and fear and paranoia, all of that changed where I thought that they were simply targeting me. See what I mean? That's a very dangerous, and not just me, my family too. Let me throw that in there. You know, Disney, they're putting in this content of pedophilic PD content so that they can, you know, compromise my children, that type of thing. Not a good headspace to be in. See, but I would say that once I started to transition out of the conspiracy theory paradigm and I stopped watching, you know, the types of videos that I've been talking about, the types of people that I've been talking about, I started to get into more spirituality and metaphysics stuff. That's when I kind of started to get more balance emotionally in my life. I didn't have that level of anxiety and fear that I had and paranoia that I had in the past. All right, great questions too, by the way. Years later, an archaeologist from UCLA found evidence of tunnels. All right. Let me just check any final ones we're going to be done. Thank you all again for tuning on in. I appreciate it. How many years? The conspiracy theory years lasted from 2004. I thought it was 6, but it's actually 2004. And the reason why is because my wife said we started watching this particular video, the Credo Mutwa video, in and around Hurricane Katrina, which I believe was in 2005, which would mean that I got into David Icke either early 2005 or late 2004, because I didn't get the DVD until after I read several of David Icke's books. And I remember at some point in one of those books, he mentioned Credo Mutwa, and that's when I got the DVD. Okay. Terrence Howard got a PhD in chemistry. He has a patent for synthetic. Are you serious? I had no idea. He did seem like a brilliant person, though. You know, I did not know that about him. What's my email? You can get it on my it's LenonHonor at Yahoo. I'm sorry, but it's listed here on my YouTube page too. Martin says there's some truth in paranoia. It's just another way of saying a heightened sense. Yeah, it can be, but it's one thing to have a heightened sense of awareness of something. And paranoia deals with threats, okay, perceived threats. Okay, so it's a danger. Let's be clear about that. And I gave definitions of paranoia, I think, in episode 1. So make sure if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's one thing to have a heightened sense of awareness about any given thing. I get that, but it's another thing where you are scared or paranoid or you're fearful of something that either doesn't exist or is not a threat to you. That's a whole nother thing. That's what I mean by the paranoia stuff. My paranoia was off the chain, you know, seeing things that really weren't threats, but I saw them as threats because I wanted to believe in conspiracy theories that classified those things as threats. Okay? The Borg agenda is another example of it. I mean, I like that series, but there's things that I said in that series are just over the top because of I was still had a toe inside the conspiracy theory. You know, that series was really about, initially it was really about, because it kind of went into a different direction, but it was originally about our overdependence, evolving overdependence, if you will, on technology and how that it can take away from humanity. Well, that's true, but it's not like technology is seeking us out as human beings to destroy us. You see what I'm saying? It's one thing to have a heightened sense of awareness. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be, you know, on my texting people or, you know, only texting people. Maybe I should call them sometime, or maybe I should go visit them, or maybe I shouldn't have to get the next tech gadget. Maybe I should be comfortable with what I have. Blah, blah, blah. This goes on and on. But it's another thing to say, you know what? The elite, they're using technology to control us. Well, what you can do is just get the technology and don't use it in a way wherein you're allowing them to control you. You see what I'm saying? You can use it to your benefit. That's what I'm getting at here. All right. Yeah, some truth. Yeah. Not totally. Okay, good point. Okay, fair enough. Last thing. Do you think the mainstream media causes the most fear? Yeah, because the mainstream media has access to most people. See, really, you know, I talked about this in my book dealing with September 11, 2001. I talked about this, the differences between, I can't believe there's still 150 people here this late on a Thursday. You guys are the best. I talked about the differences between mainstream media and the alternative media. There's some similarities too. I talked about that. But mainstream has more access to more viewers. So yeah, they cause the most amount of fear. And fear sells. Fear is important. I've talked about this. I go on and on because this is part of what I used to talk about in radio shows back in the day. With fear, you can sell anything to anybody. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in a conspiracy theory paradigm, you're an alternative media, you're mainstream. It doesn't matter. Fear is the great seller in all of life. Think about it. See? If people are saying, you know what, if you don't take this pill, you're going to have these health problems. And so then the news reports on these health problems, and then they play a commercial that talks about these pills that helps to solve that health. Well, what are people going to do? They're going to buy out of fear. They might not even have the health problem, but because they're talking about it, this could be you, right? Look at and that's with the mainstream media. That you see it all the time. But look at what Alex Jones did. He was talking about martial law and you know, how there's going to be FEMA death camps, but then he would sell people gas masks. And he made so much money, it's crazy. And you know, martial law is coming to your town and the banks are going to close down and there won't be any food left. Get your foodstuffs. Then he's selling products where you can purchase, you know, the prepper stuff. That's not by accident. Fear sells. Fear sells. Right? It's not even just that. If you even look at, let's just use dating sites. People go there for fear because they're fearful that they can't find someone to love, you know, in the real world. I mean, they can find someone to love in the real world. I need love. But a lot of times it's, you know, this is just too hard. It'd be more convenient, but really it comes from a place of fear. Okay, if I can't do it out here in the real world, let me go on here and see what I can find. And I'm not saying anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that fear is a great motivator and you can sell a lot with fear. Okay. So yeah, Mainstream media causes the most amount of fear because mainstream media it's predicated on the idea that we have to sell products. That's what really, it's not even about the media itself. It's about the commercials that sell the products. In some cases, they talk about the products inside of the newscast or even the shows in some cases in mainstream media and alternative media too, for that matter. Right? I've talked so much about this. Yeah. All right. Yeah, fear-based propaganda. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're on spring break? Well, enjoy. That's awesome. 5G. Yeah, I remember that one too. Yeah, same goes money. Alex sells his bomb shelters and David Icke sells. That's true though. Alex, did he really have bomb shelter promos? I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he sold vitamins. I remember people brought it up, and then we done. But he was selling vitamins, and what he was doing was, I remember he was getting into shape. And then he took his shirt off and he was talking, look at all his muscles and all this. So get these vitamins. I said, boy, he's a salesman. All right. Real quick, Elon Musk and Neuralink in the metaverse proves that artificial intelligence is trying to take over the human mind. I would say that artificial intelligence in and of itself is not sentient. And I've studied it because I have an IT related degree, cybersecurity, data and cybersecurity technology. And I actually wrote a paper on artificial intelligence. It's not that artificial intelligence is self-aware. I think that's a misconception that we tend to have because we've seen movies, what was it, Terminator, that type of thing. It's what people do with it and how people use it and the programming associated with it, and the learning too. That's an important aspect of this is the computer learning. You know what it can learn, and not in a traditional sense, meaning as a human being would learn, but there are algorithms that are put in place so that it can learn over time different things, but not in the same sense as human beings. So it's not that it's self-aware. It also has a lot to do with automation. In fact, artificial intelligence is an aspect of automation. And to be honest with you, automation has made human life a lot easier. There's job displacement, because I talk about this in my paper. There's job displacement that comes up, but then there's also more opportunities in terms of work opportunities for people. Because I was arguing, whether or not artificial intelligence is a detriment to society based on this worker displacement, and it can be. But I also did research into different phases of our progressions. As an example, the Industrial Revolution, there were a lot of jobs that were eliminated because of the Industrial Revolution, but there was a lot of jobs that were created because of it too. And that's where, and I also argue real quick, and we're going to be done. I argue that as companies implement artificial intelligence more and more, they should have programs in place where retraining takes place for workers who lose jobs because of automation or because of artificial intelligence. Okay? And other things too. I had a whole list of things that should take place. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that too. Alex Jones brand bomb shelters. Yeah, that's true. Some people do it for convenience too, but some people do it because they're fearful. And then they get into the catfishing thing, that type of thing, and they don't feel like they can meet people in the real. But you can meet whoever you want to. All right, let me just go down here to the bottom. Thank you for sharing. I hadn't thought about. Yeah, I haven't either. And it's going to be the last point, lady. I haven't thought about a lot of this stuff, and that's why I think the series is important, because it's brought up a lot for me, and it's not all good. It's not all good at all. And I haven't thought about, just like we were watching this Credo Mutwa. There's things that he's saying here. I'm like, wait a minute, did he just say that? Haven't thought about these things in years, and some of these things that I didn't think about then, but I'm a lot older and wiser now. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this stuff, as we've gone through this series, I haven't thought about, including the dreams. I hadn't thought about that, and then why was I thinking that maybe those weren't dreams? And at a certain point, I said, wait a minute, those weren't dreams. No, those are dreams. I hadn't thought about that in so long until I was watching this video, Credo Mutwa, and he was talking about abduction, and then I also watched Alex Caller talking about alien abduction, and we'll get into that one in the next episode. Then that's when it kind of hit me. I said, wait a minute, All right. Okay, thank you all so much for tuning on in. Did you enjoy the live stream? I hope you enjoyed the live stream. If you tune in later, make sure you go back and check out the beginning of this particular live stream. I may do episode number 5 tomorrow. It just depends. Give me some time to think about it. But if I do, I'll have it up in the morning before I go to work. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning on. Also, thanks to everyone who sent in super chats. I really do appreciate it. Okay, I really do. And please enjoy the rest of your evening. And if I do live stream tomorrow, we will do episode number 5. And then on Saturday, I should have a special treat for you all. Okay. All right, y'all, thank you so much. All right, thank you. And I hope this series is helping you with whatever it is. I don't care what it may be, but I hope that it helps you. Okay. And helps others. Love y'all. And I'll talk to you soon. All right. Take care. Peace.